Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the PYA Changemaker series. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to bring you a good friend of mine, Brad Robertson from the Save the Med Foundation here in the Balearics. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks very much, Ria. Thanks for having me again.
No, do you know what? It's always an absolute pleasure to have you because you have such an important message to share. For those that haven't heard of Save the Med Foundation before, tell us just a brief overview of what it is that your foundation does.
Okay, well, it says it on the box, right? Working to save the med, and in fact, the med doesn't really need saving. I think it's us that need the saving. What we do, we've got a team of extremely passionate professionals. There's 12 of us employed, 8 board members. We're a science-based marine regeneration organisation. We work in 2 fields, one being marine protection and the other one being reduction of pollution. Within those, we have outreach programs, research programs. We work with businesses, we work with schools. So it's really about taking the science to the general public in various forms. A lot of the work we do is educational work. Providing information. Although human beings have created, basically all the problems that we're dealing with environmentally, I still like to have some sort of faith that if we can provide information to these people, to everybody, that we still have the collective and individual intelligence to deal with the information in a respectful and positive way.
Do you think that perhaps a large portion of our downfall is that there was a lack of education in regards to what we were doing to our planet and our seas and oceans?
Well, I mean, the more I work in this, and the more I'm working with the business world, the for-profit world as well, it's amazing. So in business, we have to do a business plan to make sure that our business not only survives but thrives. But yet we don't have to do that with the environment that we're living in. So we rape and pillage the environment that's keeping us alive, but we care completely about a business. Sure, it gives us some money, but really, is it keeping us alive? No, it's not keeping us alive. So therefore, that I think that you look back at the evolution of humans, we went too hard and too fast. Kid in a candy store, 21-year-old in a nightclub, you name it, you can make all these comparisons. We just went with a very ignorant and enthusiastic drive forward to make money and make our life what we were told is better. I think with human beings, the whole evolution, I compare us to like the whole evolution of humans. We're like a 17, 18, maybe a little bit older, may say 21-year-old human being that's just gone really hard, really fast for a few years and then stopped and gone, oh shit, I've just made a really big mess of everything that I've done. And this realization process is what we're going through at the moment.
One of the things that I find really interesting is that this huge push to move away from plastics. Now, I'm of a generation, without giving away my exact age, but I remember the days when all we used was paper products and we were, accusing each other of destroying the forest. So our solution to that issue was plastic. And now all of a sudden we're seeing, what plastic actually has done, and we're starting to go back to the paper alternatives. Is there an answer that, we're not going to find in 20 years is creating chaos across the planet?
I remember those days as well. So we're from the same generation here. It's the solution wasn't the plastics. The plastics came in because it was a cheap, very cheap material for corporations to use to package their products. And as much as Save the Med and other great organizations are working on providing information to individuals on what you can do to avoid plastic in the day-to-day. We all know, you've got kids, Ria, I've got kids, we both work really, really hard. There's not enough hours in the day. So to do your shopping and to do it without plastic is almost impossible. So the response, although I think individuals need that feel good feeling, that feel good sensation of I've just done something good. I've reduced my plastic consumption. But the buck stops with the corporations, and the buck stops with the CEOs of these corporations. They are individuals. They are signing all of the paperwork for those corporations to pollute the earth. So therefore, they are personally and professionally responsible for this problem.
Well, and you also mentioned that you take a scientific approach to keeping an eye on the Med. Can you tell us, in the time that Save the Med has been in existence, what types of things have you seen within the Mediterranean and sort of the deterioration, as it were?
Where do you start? I mean, the beach cleans, we find everything. Everything from what people think are chupa chup sticks, but they're actually from the earbuds, from cleaning your ears and people throwing them down the toilet. If you walk around the coastline of Palmer Bay, anywhere, Portichol, in front of the cathedral, and you find a little rocky outcrop, you'll find it on the sand as well, but you'll see this this white stretched out material that's everywhere, and this is these are wet wipes. They are everywhere. So people are using them. People use wet wipes now for the most crazy things. You know, they throw them down the toilet and then they end up in the sea. So you're talking about various issues here. You're talking about not understanding the consumer, not understanding the products they're buying. Potentially because what's written on these products is a complete lie, saying it's green and it's biodegradable and everything else. It's amazing what these marketers can get away with. So again, not the consumer's fault, being given false information about products. Then I think a little bit or a lot of ignorance. You know what it's like, flush a chain, problem solved. But then you get into the problems of the emissarios, of the sewer systems here in the Mediterranean. Most of those were built in the 1930s, potentially earlier, for a population size of that date. And our population has skyrocketed out of control, plus the 15 million tourists that we get here every year. So these facilities do not have the capability to deal with the amount of liquid going into their treatment plant. And in fact, when it rains, there's so much volume going through that it's just completely bypassed. So you have the raw sewage and the stormwater going out into the Bay of Palma. I won't swim in the Bay of Palma. I won't take my kids in the Bay of Palma. Yeah, you see the yachts sometimes anchored out there, and this is after a storm, and they'll be surrounded by the sludge, and it's like, I hope they're on sea trial and not on charter. So yeah, there's various systemic issues that need to be dealt with, so we can deal with various levels of plastic pollution and other types of pollution coming from these broken systems.
Well, and you know, it's ironic that you talk about sort of the way people get away with marketing. And of course, one of the most controversial films to come out lately was Sustainability. And there was a comment, there was a company that was talking about the tuna, and it was marked safe. And of course, there was absolutely no accountability held for that, and they couldn't account for it. Do you think that fishing and overfishing and the nets that are left everywhere, is that a big contributing factor as well?
To the plastic pollution, yes, definitely. Discarded fishing equipment is, according to some reports, actually per volume, a larger problem than domestic plastics. So bottles, we're talking about the earbuds and whatever else. So discarded fishing equipment, which is typically made of nylon or some type of poly something, is a massive problem. Obviously, overfishing is dire. Spain doesn't have anything to be proud of when it comes to the size of their industrial fishing fleet and the regulations that many of these boats ignore. The European Union has got a lot to be ashamed of. There are subsidies for these fishing boats, so they're not even a profitable business. But yet the European Union will give them subsidies so they can keep these environmentally destructive, unprofitable businesses going, because there's a what I see, particularly in the European Union, a how would you say, nest of comfortable folk, right? That don't want to break the system. So when you have a system that internally the people are so comfortable, and that system's broken, why would you want to change it, or why would they want to change it? So yeah, industrial fishing needs to be completely outlawed. What needs to be embraced is local artisanal fishing, particularly in the Mediterranean. Get rid of the industrial long lines, get rid of the industrial bottom trawlers. Bottom trawling is like if you were, so say for the vegans out there, if you were eating mushrooms, and your mushrooms were growing in the forest, and the way that you found your mushrooms is you chop down the entire forest and then you go, oh, look, there are my mushrooms. That's exactly the same as bottom trawling. It destroys everything. The governments, what the word that they use here is, this industry is very important. All right, what's it very important for? It's very important for the economy, and the broken system that we're living within. So if we go back to the root of these problems, Australia, and I don't like to say this, back in Australia, because I haven't been there for very long, and Mallorca in Spain is definitely my home. But when they rezoned the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, they took into account the fishermen that were there, and they retrained them. A lot of the old captains became captains of tour operators. Probably not the best combination, an old grumpy fishing captain taking out tourists. And I experienced that myself. But the thought was good and the action was positive. Once that one generation retired and we got the grumpiness out of there, then it all worked. So there are ways to solve this. But again, like most of the world's problems, you're dealing with political systems that are, these people are there for 4 years, they don't care what happens in 8. They want to make sure something positive happens for them in 4. So therefore committing to the long term is not a core element of politicians today.
Let me ask you, do you think films like docuseries, like Sustainability and others, do you think those are helpful and beneficial to the world as a whole? Because I know that within the yachting and boating industries, we are very aware because we're in the water all the time. But for the general population that aren't quite as aware of the issues that are going on in our oceans and the fact that if our oceans are polluted and dead, then we all die. There's your good news for the day. But do you think these kind of movies or docuseries are good for the general population to actually maybe perhaps wake them up a little bit?
Yeah, it's very hard. Documentary makers are another unique breed. It's there's a lot of ego involved in these productions. So I mean, was it Seaspiracy? I watched it. I thought to myself as I was watching it, I'm so happy they didn't ask to interview me, because the people that got interviewed got absolutely nailed. Yeah. I know a couple of the people in that documentary. They're good people, and one in particular got absolutely drilled and put in a position where she was not able to not defend herself, but to respond in a way that would paint a completely different picture. So the editing was done in a very manipulative way. Yeah. So when the ins and outs of it, like I do to some extent, you can analyze it like that. Generally, yeah, great. If they're talking a little bit of nonsense, then the general public's they're not gonna filter that detail out. The fact that it got so many people talking about the subject was fantastic, definitely. And I think it would be great if there was more nature document. I mean, David Attenborough's just absolutely awesome, and I don't think anybody in the world comes close to putting together information and delivering it like him. There's very little political leverage in his talks. It's very factual. So, you know, it's science-based and delivered in a way that's engaging for the man and the woman on the street. So yeah, definitely, we need more exposure. We need more people like yourself talking about this. We need people in particularly industries like yachting that are, you know, yachting's got such a huge capability to help in a positive way particularly with the technology, and I wouldn't say, well, yeah, the excess or the huge amount of funds that are backing the technology, and that technology may be being designed for recreational and leisure purposes, although there's a lot more yachts being built for expeditions. But this technology can be tapped into and taken into the public sector, like with the government, through the private sector, and potentially to improve things like the sewer systems, you know. So yeah, there's lots to be said about bringing yachting in and extracting all the positives that we can and yeah, make a change. We're really running out of time, and people don't realize it. David Suzuki's got a great quote that I love for all the wrong reasons, and he describes humanity as a group of people in a speeding car heading towards a brick wall, and we're all in the car and we're arguing about where we're going to sit, right? Imminent death in front of us, but hang on a minute, no, I want to sit in the back seat, please. And that's really what's happening with a lot of people around the world.
Well, you know what? I was going to say that when it comes to some of these docuseries, that most people will take that with a grain of salt, but I'm not sure that's to be absolutely true after reading social media and comments that are put up on social media, because I'm just not sure how bright people are nowadays. You know, I mean, it just seems like we're fed something with a spoon and we just kind of take the bits that we want and ignore the rest. And it's a sad state because, like you said, you know, we are very, very close to where we are not going to have an ocean that actually has any life in it. And if the ocean doesn't have any life, we don't have life. But
we've got Posidonia oceanica, Poseidon grass here, which yachties know all about. That produces 1 square meter of this seagrass produces between 10 and 15 liters of oxygen per day. It doesn't produce 10 to 15 liters of top class gin, unfortunately. It doesn't produce 10 to 15 liters or kilos of caviar to eat on your yacht. It's only oxygen.
It only allows you to breathe, right?
It's just for breathing, and I'm sure with top class gin and really nice caviar, then breathing will be like not necessary.
Oh, I love your sarcastic wit. Let me ask you, Brad, if people want to contribute to Save the Med Foundation, want to be part of it, want to volunteer, want to keep up to date on what you guys are doing, how can they do that?
You can get in touch. The email is info@savethemed.org, website savethemed.org. Our YouTube channel, it's a bit hard to navigate, but there's some, particularly for the yachts and coming up to the season, the season's now started. We were out on World Oceans Day. We came across 12 turtles on the way out to then what we were swimming again with some massive bluefin tuna. It was really epic. But those turtles were all, it's the first time I've seen that many turtles in a row, and not one of them was entangled. So please watch particularly in the afternoons when it's flat. The turtles they're offshore, they're sunning themselves. So when you're on watch and you're navigating, please keep an eye out for these things. If you come across the turtles that are entangled, there's a great video on our YouTube channel. It's a really simple process. Call 112 first, try and get the turtle on board. Whatever you do, do not entangle the turtle because you're potentially going to kill it. And then if you're anywhere near the Balearics, people from Palmer Aquarium Rescue Centre will come out, potentially with us, and take the turtle to the rescue centre to help. So little best practices are really like core messages that I think Save the Med can get out to the yachting industry, and it's an easy to do.
Well, and you know what, that is something that you've said before, and I've seen on social media as well, is when you come across those turtles, because I've seen these videos of somebody taking a turtle and detangling them and throwing them back in the water, and everyone's saying, bravo, bravo, but that's actually possibly could kill them. So the idea that we have to reiterate, please do, if you find a turtle that is entangled, please do call that number. We'll make sure to provide that below this interview because you know what, we got to save them.
I'll send you the link, Rhea.
Yes, please.
Every single yacht crew member, regardless of their time on board, has basic first aid training. And everybody knows that if you have a tourniquet on a limb, on a human for a period of time, you do not take it off. You take that human to the doctors, and the doctor deals with it. Otherwise, that blood will be poisoned and go through the system, gone. Reptiles, turtles, they're exactly the same. They have blood flowing through their body. So just take that, and this is one of the things that amazes me. There's sometimes there's not that crossover of basic first aid understanding from a human being to a turtle. So yeah, really, really important.
Wonderful. Well, once again, I have to say thank you to Brad Robertson. You, as always, have provided us with some great information, and I really do encourage you to follow them. The education is absolutely phenomenal, and it applies not just to the Med, but it applies to our oceans the world over. And their site is very easy to navigate, and there's a lot of great information on there. So thank you, Brad.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, and yeah, hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, well, you're welcome back anytime. Once again, this has been Brad Robertson from Save the Med Foundation. This has been another edition of PYA Changemakers. My name is Rhea. I've been your host. Please tune in again for another episode.